Recording is on.
Welcome to DXgov governance discussion for Wednesday, December 28th, the last discussion of 2022. Just looking at the agenda here, just going over the proposal roundup. There's actually quite a few proposals on mainnet and few on Gnosis chain. A lot of kind of end of year ones, and then just a couple updates on something new that is also something old. And then like where we're at in terms of like budget process check-in and like funding for the new year. But we'll try to keep this tight so people can be there. So maybe let's start with mainnet. So there's actually a bunch of proposals live on mainnet, mostly because the Gnosis chain base is I'd say running low, but I think has run out of funds as we're shifting to guilds. So a lot of the worker proposals, contributor proposals that would have gone through Gnosis chain maybe at the end of the year have gone through the mainnet here. So that's partly a result of that. But just to go through these here, you can see first here is Nathan, a rep sync and a vested DXD claim. So Nathan, of course, was a contributor to DXBiz for, I guess, just over a year and a half. And this is a rep sync, mainnet rep sync for proposals that he's gotten paid on Gnosis chain. And it's also a vested DXD claim for the DXD that he's earned from there. So you can see it's actually a pretty sizable chunk of reputation there. And then another one, DX referral reward, Milan V. So Milan V, this is part of the DX referral program, which incentivizes contributors to recruit other contributors. So Milan V is claiming this for Philip, and that is like a 3,000. I believe this is DAI. 3,000 DAI payment. And then we have two payout proposals from Lucy Foss, Federico for work on Carrot, and Nimi and Swapper. This one is actually going back to the middle of last year. Federico was fortunate enough to submit these on mainnet when we were trying to get people to switch over there. I will be sure to vote on that later. I actually haven't had a chance to vote on these proposals this morning because my ledger was bugging out, but is now fixed. But that was an annoying thing this morning. Sorry for the tangent. And then we have Augusto L DXD vested bulk withdrawal. So this is again one for DXD that is already vested here, and so you can see the amount that he's claiming here is 43.6 DXD out of the total 119.3 DXD that Augusto has earned. He did a good job of documenting this in DAO Talk here, so you can take a look at that there. As a reminder, you can calculate this yourself, but I think Ali has actually posted, a post about it here about the 22 DXD one. If you're having questions about what that is, you can do that there. And then there's also a sheet that will help you figure out how many would be actually vested so far. So,
Hola. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Chris. This is based on the past proposal. So it is the same vested contracts. Only the updated unclaimed time that passed. So that's it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That's right. Because all these are, you can see 12, 20, 21, that's a year ago, meaning half of those have already vested. So all of these pay periods have had a portion that is vested. And awesome. And then I want to get to something special about that proposal in a second. But we also have Boris Block here, basically kind of the same thing here. His is for 19.3 DXD. This is for 2021. Because with the previous compensation scheme, so if you recall, we started a new compensation scheme starting in 2022, which increased the DXD payment a little bit, but it also extended the vesting period to 3 years there, whereas the ones that were from 2021 before were actually just 2 years. So after 1 year, you basically have 50% of the payment. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing that here. I also, maybe a speculation, one of the reasons you're seeing it here, not just because it's the holidays time, but also at the end of year, people tend to like to do payments and income to maximize their tax year adjustments there. So actually, I'm thinking about that when it comes to the beginning of January. There may be some more DXD payments there. But as always, make sure to check on these. And just something to do that we have not done yet is, with the DXD token model, the circulating supply is really important, and that can kind of change a lot. And the definition of it is pretty clear. It should only be DXD that is vested. But because it comes in these like lumpy amounts, like if you see Augusto right now is going to claim 43 DXD, even though that like 43 DXD then will just appear suddenly as an increase in circulating supply, even though that like should have been something gradually that was happening over the last couple months. So anyway, just tracking that is a little tricky because the circulating supply is so important. It's never that much. It's only going to be off by like a couple hundred DXD at a time maximum. So I don't think it would be that much, but we just need to come up with a better system for tracking that. Because there's also some DXD that's investing contracts. So you want to basically calculate like how much of that has been vested, even if the person hasn't vested it themselves. Anyway, so that's, I think that's most of that's the DXD ones on mainnet. The other, we got a couple more here actually. But oh no, here we go. So we got Boris block. We have, I think, about 5 cow swap orders that are gone. A lot of these are actually LUSD too. So LUSD is just another stable coin. It's actually trading above $1. So that's the reason we're using those there. And then also we have 3 proposals from Ross. The first one here is an end of year 2022 expenses for DXgov. This includes like some like API payments and I think some of the different things. There's also this Parallax network contract development work that those will recall that was like a separate payment. So that's $1,500 there. You can see the payment transaction there. And then we have 2 worker proposals for Ross, or one going kind of backwards and forward. I guess it's like 5.5 weeks here because it starts in the middle of November and then goes to just the end of this month because it's switching over to guilds there. So that's boosted there. And I think those are all of, and then we have, Augusto L contributor proposal number 7 payment. So this was Augusto's proposal. So this is actually a pretty big payment because this would be 36K because it actually combines the 4 months proposal in there, and you can make I think he made a post about this, replied, I guess, like about a week or 2 ago. I think he had done the reflections, and then put it up for a post there as well. And the interesting thing about the Augusto post, or that both of his proposals, is you can see that there is that is actually in a different contribution reward scheme. So this is the new contribution reward scheme, the one that doesn't allow you to submit proposals with multiple periods there. This is, and I guess you can't see it here, but I actually have I submitted one to that. Yeah, there it is. I submitted one to the new contribution reward like 30 minutes ago at 14.7 Gwei. It hasn't caught yet, but my upcoming contributor proposal will also be through this one as well. And the important thing is that's being monitored on DXvote. Augusto added that to the DXvote here. And I think that's all for the actual proposals on mainnet. I wasn't sure if there were any thoughts or comments on those. Cool. And then, I guess we can maybe jump. I guess let's just do the Gnosis chain real quick, and then we'll get to the alchemy in a second because it kind of helps. So on Gnosis chain, as I said, we actually don't have very many proposals. This is partly on purpose, partly as a result of switching to guild. So there's less contributor proposals overall for this. And also because there's less funds on Gnosis chain. So really right now we just have the 2 proposals that are main proposals. Then we have 4 different buyback orders that are going on there. So we have the approved swapper H1 budget proposal there, and then which we can look at the swapper post here. And then also the same thing for Carrot. I think there were some little issues at the end of last week getting these up, but these have been discussed for a long time. There's been some great feedback from the community. And I think kind of shows a direction that has been that is from DXgov consensus. I think, assuming the proposal passes, you can see how it's had inputs from lots of people. Think about the swapper and the Carrot one there. So yeah, if you feel inclined, do go vote. Wasn't sure if there was any comments or not. Venki is probably not here yet. Anything on the swapper and Carrot ones? Cool. And then next item, those that may have seen, there has been I wouldn't call it a Frankenstein, maybe a Phoenix, some type of resurrection, but the boys, or maybe the fellas at 3ac.vc, still searching for a new name, have forked Alchemy and got it up and running on a new site now. And so in addition to anything you can see on DXvote right now, you should be able to use Alchemy just as it was before it went down, I guess about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago after that vulnerability disclosure. So you can see here, it's like the same old Alchemy, and these are just all of the proposals that we went through there. And remember, Alchemy separates them by scheme. It doesn't, well, I guess they have this kind of, this is kind of the same view there as well. And yeah, so anyone can kind of, it'll be another way, of course, of checking and monitoring, but it also has some easier UI for some people, but also some things that you can't do as much as well. So it's great, I think, to have both of these. And so I think big kudos to 3AC, VC, Adam, and crew for setting this up. And it is both for mainnet and Gnosis Chain. I think the Gnosis Chain one is a little bit, as you can see here, DXvote has kind of gone through a Gnosis Chain here, but has had a little bit more, I think, trouble with Gnosis Chain there. But yeah, I think it's quicker than it was before. Adam, do you have anything to add or thoughts, or do you want to take a bow?
Much to say, I guess. Just the fact that we had to redeploy the subgraph, because the subgraph, if you add a new scheme that is not one of the core schemes, you need to manually add the API for that, and then in order for the subgraph to start catching or indexing those proposals. But otherwise, it was straightforward, probably like 3 hours of work to get a understanding of the code base, and then deploy everything. Wait about 2 days for the subgraph to index, because we had about 10 million blocks on the mainnet chain, and then about 16 million blocks to index on Gnosis chain. So that was everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really cool. You did deployed the new subgraph here, and that's why you can see these are the two different funding and voting power ones there. And so these are really the key ones. And then the other key one, I guess plugin, it's called plugin manager here. I was thinking scheme manager here, but these are the ones that we want to monitor. And you can see here very clearly, this is the proposal that Adam had submitted, I think about a week and a half ago. This is removing the old contribution scheme, which would be this one here, the one we've been using, which of course allows for multiple periods to be resubmitted there. Yeah, maybe just like, I guess 2 comments. One, kind of like positively in thinking, we now have almost like 4 different ways of monitoring proposals and kind of checking them. We have DXvote, which is kind of running on that one. We have now Alchemy kind of back up and running. There's the subgraph through there. There's a security bot that Dave has had that runs through Keybase. And then there's actually just good old-fashioned Etherscan, which you can still do for this. And actually for this one right here, I was actually kind of monitoring this one through Etherscan before it was on DXvote, because you can just see here if anyone's proposed a contribution reward. So this is when it was there, and you see these are Augusto's two proposals. Some people refer to him as the swapper deployer. I prefer Augusto, and you can see here, this is the one I said from Candy Fork that is there. So you can monitor that there. So there's now like 4 different ways, I think, of monitoring proposals, which I think is really, is really great. I think big ups for doing this and setting it up. Okay, and then kind of last thing I just wanted to touch on, see if there are any questions on or process. So if you can see here, we have like the swapper H1 budget and the Carrot H1 budget there. You can also notice that Gnosis chain is low, empty on funds right now. And so talking about how to replenish those. So the plan, I think, for funding going forward is, so we now have the 3 budgets that have been approved for the Operations Guild, DXgov, Voice Guild, and then we now have these 2 proposals that are going to hopefully pass. I think it's in like 3.5 days from now. And then, so that'll be 5 guild proposals. And the way that they were each structured was to have the first 3 months of expenses sent to the guild or in a single proposal. So although it's a 6-month budget, we'd actually just send half of them in the initial stage. So after these swapper and Carrot budgets are approved, there will be a single proposal that will send all of the Q1 funds for all of the guilds, and it will have the amounts laid out from the proposals that have already been approved for each of those guilds there. So in order to get that proposal, we need the swapper and the Carrot ones to pass, which again, I think I was saying is going to be in like 3.5 days. So once that is submitted, once that is passed, we can submit the new proposal to transfer funds. And in that proposal, in addition to transferring funds to the guilds for the first 3 months, there will be a certain amount, probably I'm thinking 50K, maybe 100K, that is put into Gnosis chain just to fund that operations there. I don't think there will be a whole bunch of expenses on Gnosis chain as much anymore, because all the contributor payments have shifted away from that base, but having maybe smaller payments will still go through there. But that funding proposal to the Gnosis chain base, which will also replenish the base for anyone that still has funds stuck in there that has already passed a proposal. I think Diego is one, and maybe there may be some others that will be able to claim after this funding proposal is passed, which should be 3.5 days from the swapper and Carrot ones passing, and then 8 days from a mainnet proposal. So like 12 or 13 days from now. Awesome.
Chris, on that. So like one big proposal that sends funds is okay. They could be separate proposals, but we still want to know, and I guess Augusto's opinion, and Ross isn't here right now, but each guild is gonna, the idea was to use a Davi guild for each guild. We're not sure if that's all ready yet. I think there's a New Year's plan to get it all released and stuff, but it's obviously not super well tested. So having, $300,000-$400,000 in those is maybe not the best way to start them, like putting maybe some money in, or having the guilds use another mechanism that they could, potentially, like DX or Voice Guild already has a Gnosis safe, for example. So guilds should also probably have their own safes. When are we going to decide on like where money for each guild would go and how much to put initially, and how to do the process, basically? I think a lot of people probably agree that putting $300,000-$400,000 into the newly released guilds, if we're not testing them a little more, might be risky.
Yeah, I would. What I'm hoping happens or expecting is, I think all of the guilds should set up their own multi-sigs. And maybe this is something you can do, we can talk about, and that is what the initial funding will go to. But in conjunction with this, in parallel with that, the guilds will be up and running, and they can kind of slowly function like more and more. And I think specifically around the forum element is the one, I think the big component is that having these guilds have their own forum that's in Davi from the beginning would be really important and be a way of like using the product. But when we just think of like the very specifics of like where the funds are going to be and like how is that going to manage, I think first off is like the funds in the initial stage, meaning like when we do a funding proposal from mainnet, they, of course, like I think at the very beginning, they're going to go into a multi-sig, because even if like they go into a guild, the guilds will be on no such change, they can't do that. So that initial funding proposal will presumably be to the multi-chain multi-sig that has been used, for a long time, and we can kind of figure out how to do this. So that's what we know for sure. And then after that, I agree with you. I don't think the initial payment to each of the guilds should go directly to the guilds, but I think we need some mechanism to set up what is the biggest cost for all of the guilds, which is the real reason like the funds are being sent, is compensation for contributors. And how we do compensation for contributors, Melanie made a post about that, in terms of like doing the proposals, like that's up to each individual guild. But I'm hoping that the guilds can figure out a way to do some type of like streaming payments options for the 3 months. And for that, I think it would be fine for a multi-sig to set that up. So I could see that basically all of the funds outside of compensation, which is streaming, that's set up by a multi-sig, all of those could theoretically sit in the guild. And then you're using the guild to dispense those, and then also do kind of starting the guild itself in terms of like the forum, which again, which I think is a key component, having that manage things going forward. So I'm hoping that's kind of like the plan that I would think we need. I think the big key piece missing from that, from the infrastructure, is like having those multi-sigs set up. But I think that is the only thing we really need to do, and I think we should feel comfortable with being able to do it, because like we just need to, like guilds, and we're going to use them, dog food them, but people will need to, we need to get started, and people need to get paid, and I think figuring out that is key. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, the guilds can hold their own balance and can make their own decisions on their addresses, on the guild address. So the only thing that I think will be maybe the best way to do, just to be cautious about it, would be to send the funds gradually to each guild. Once the guild is set up, we see that the token distribution in the guild is being done, is the one that has been approved by the DAO, and even like a test proposal passes, right? Like we can send a few funds just to test the guild, like send a few $1,000, make a payment, make a test proposal, and once we saw that works, we can set up even the permissions for the guild that says how much ether, in this case of Enosis chain, is going to be XI, can left the guild on each proposal. We can set strong limits there, so we can even, if you want, we can even test that, like set very strict limits on how much much funds can leave the guild on XI. We can do it even for other tokens, but we can say, for example, okay, not more than 5,000 XI can leave a guild proposal, or more than 1,000. We can create 2 test proposals, one that is going to be over the limit and one that is going to be under the limit. Do those test proposals, see that the guild works, that we are using, that we are testing it, that we are creating proposals, voting on it, executing them, and then we send more funds to it. That's a very important thing, that the guild was designed to use this permission registry. So design it accordingly to check out that we have a limit of funds that are going to leave the guild per proposal. So first, configure the guild, do the token distribution, execute test proposals, set the permissions, and then we send funds to it. And we don't need to send the entirety of the funds. We can send it in chunks, maybe like a third of it or something like that at the beginning, and start using that gradually if we feel like we want to. Also, that is going to be easier to migrate in case something happens. So the only way to change a gear is you create a new gear and you send the new funds to it. But what I will propose will be that we use the gear. I mean, we set up the gears, we do the token distributions. You're going to be able to see a token distribution in Davi, and we do some test proposals, and that's it.
Sky, I don't know if you had any.
Yeah, so I agree. Okay, so Augusto, you just said like a whole bunch of testing. So like once this thing is ready, and I'm worried, like you just set a bunch of permissions and settings. You're talking about settings. Most people, we're gonna want to be able to see those settings. We want to see who's in these guilds and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure that stuff's ready yet. But either way, like DXgov guilds are gonna need multiple tools. So they're going to need the Davi guild. They're going to need a multi-sig. They're going to need those on multiple chains. And they're going to, guilds are going to want to do this testing like you're saying, but probably leave like most of the money in the safe. So we want a guild to have a safe. And then that guild is going to send money into the guild, send money out of the guild as testing. But like each guild, the people that are in that guild should get comfortable with their guild. And they're going to need, a way to send in and out and things like that. So it seems like either way, we're going to need, guild multi-sigs at least or something, right?
Yeah, I don't understand what do you mean by guild multisig. Like it's a guild.
The group of people that are a guild, like you're talking about doing a bunch of testing and sending money in and out of guilds. Like, is this going to be between the guild and your personal wallet, or like and send over 10,000 and under 10,000 and all these different tests? Are the guilds going to all do these tests themselves, and then do these guild people need a guild multi-sig as well in order to do these tests?
No, there is no multi-sig. I mean, it's just a guild. Just a guild that has an address, has a reputation token.
So we're leaving the money in DXDAO's like dev multi-sig. Like once we pass this proposal, where's the money sitting before we're sending it into guilds?
It can sit on DXgov XI in the
main DAO.
Yeah, it can sit in the main DAO, and we send it gradually to the guilds if we want to. So
yeah, I mean, Augusto, we're talking about paying people next week.
Yes.
So like, I don't think all of that testing is going to happen next week.
It's just creating a test proposal and voting on it and executing it. And
that's all right. That's fine. I haven't created a test proposal for guilds yet, and so it's kind of hard to rely on that. I'm trying to come up with a way for people to get paid starting next week, and so I think we want to support the guilds, but like I haven't tried it out yet.
Yes. We need to have the money in XI, right? We need to transfer the money in XI, and then we can transfer it to the guild. So,
right, and we need the multiple.
I don't think it's realistic to expect payment from the guild like in the next week. First, we need to deploy the guild. Then you need to send the funds to it, and then you need the guild to be able to execute the proposal.
Right. That's why, but we need to pay people starting next week because people work for.
Sí. Yes.
So I mean, I think we're all like going to get there. I think it's just I think we need to like, I think DXgov of course can kind of operate from that way kind of for the beginning, but I think how we start getting people kind of paid in the initial stages. I think now, like for instance, when you would do a submission proposal for funding, like we would need the addresses for the guilds if we were going to fund those directly. And so we would need that like Friday to be able to submit the funding proposal that would take then 8 days to go through and then people would start getting paid in like, January 8th, 9th, and 10th.
And Augusto, I don't think we're gonna, when we take money out of mainnet DAO and we have to bridge it over to Gnosis chain, I don't think we're gonna put it in DXDAO on base on Gnosis chain, because then we'll just have to do another proposal to get it out of Gnosis DXDAO. So it's probably going to stay in, I guess, the dev multisig until the dev multisig can send it to some places for guilds, and guilds should be able to take some or all of their money in some place, right?
Yes. So based from what I hear, I guess the best way will be to send some money, not the entirety of it, to the developer multi-signature in Gnosis chain. And when we have the guilds addresses, that seems like Ross was just working deploying them, we send funds to the guilds and we start executing proposals from the guild. This is something that we didn't talk about. For example, how much time we are going to have proposal time for the guilds. It's going to be 1 day, 3 days, maybe even more, so that's something that we haven't discussed yet, but I guess something between the range of 1 or 3 days of proposal time on the guilds can be good enough, like 48 hours.
Yeah, I think that's that discussion, I think, I'm not sure actually what the guilds should decide for those. And that probably depends a lot on like the guild itself. And so I think there just is a lot to kind of figure out in this initial stage that I don't think will be ready kind of in the next couple days. So I think at least for operations guild, and I'm kind of thinking for voice guild, I think the initial stages, I think it makes sense to also have a companion multi-sig that can do this. Maybe DXgov can kind of run the guilds itself and kind of entirely. Off of that, they probably also have a separate testing one. But to me, it makes sense to have a companion multi-sig.
That can work as well. Where we create a multi-signature, like you said, that is going to be deployed right along the guild, and maybe can handle the funds and transfer the funds gradually to the guild. And later, when we feel confident, we move entirely to the guild, to the process.
I'm a very organic governance builder person. I think that's very important. And so I think it's not the best strategy to come up with you were just talking about how long should proposal lengths be. It's I'm actually not sure. That seems to be you may want that to either have time to discuss, but I think really what you want is just to have that slowly develop and evolve over time. And so I think that's what you want to be doing. The key thing is you want to have some foundation to start with, and then kind of be building governance process, governance tools into it. That's why I think the key thing that I think to be able to launch with the guilds is actually the forum for the guilds itself, because that to me is really the home base, right? You think of the forum is kind of a lot of ways. And so we could do that and get the guilds on there, then that will automatically start that governance evolution process. Anyway, I know Ross, if you wanted to chime in at all, you don't need to, but we've kind of been chatting here a little bit, maybe getting a little not off course, but maybe a little repetitive.
Yeah, apologies, I couldn't make the call. I just got in a minute or two ago there, and forgot we had the call, and we were on another call deploying the guilds. But yeah, we're pretty on course, hopefully for the new year, having that release with the forum out. And yeah, well, as I said, we're just deploying the guilds. I think we're just going to do Gnosis chain today, check everything's good, and then go for Ethereum, obviously, just because gas costs are a bit higher. And we can have those addresses ready.
Who's in
the forum?
When you summon or deploy the guild, is it just one person? Who are you putting the guild?
No, we're just using
the guilds.
Yeah, we're using the what Vista was put in the forum, the breakdown of percentages and stuff there. So when the guild start, it'll be in the state that was described in the forum posts for each budget.
You have everyone's wallet addresses and things?
I think they're written down. We've only just done DXgov as a test. I think it was last week. We're going to do it again today. But I
Even
can
in
check
case,
for everyone's.
even in case something is missing, we can create later proposals to mint and burn reputation. So I guess it would be even ideal if not entirely like everyone's reputation is for example, is deployed there, and you need to mint reputation for any user, or these are or we didn't have the others at the moment of the deployment. Like if
I forgot
later
to
we
change
need to
wallet.
execute proposals to mint and burn reputation, that will be even better. So this will function as a way of testing and using the gear and using different features.
Awesome.
So, for example, on the developer operations gears, well, right now the gear I guess is being deployed with entire configuration. But in case if not, for example, we can omit my reputation and we can create a proposal on the gear later to mint the reputation that I should have, and we have a proposal that is minting the reputation or burning or whatever. So late we can see how to use it, right? How to mint, burn reputation, and transfer funds. That is basically just what we are going to do, right? We are going to transfer funds and mint and burn reputation on the gears. Later, I guess we are going to get maybe a bit crazy and wide, and we are going to transfer other tokens and have vesting contracts. But the basic action that we want to do is to transfer the native currency token that is going to be XI on Gnosis chain, and burn and mint reputation.
And all these guilds that you deploy they'll all show up in Project Avi?
Yeah, and the new release that we do next week. Yeah.
In the new release. Do the old ones?
We're going to just get rid of them since we're not using them for anything right now.
They just get hidden in the front end? How does it, the front end just you whitelist guilds that you want to show on the front end? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we just have a registry of all the guilds that we're showing. We're just deploying a new registry, and we'll use that as our new production one.
Can you get to a guild that's not in the registry?
Yeah, if you have the address.
Let's just, I think it's a good conversation, but I think this is like all the testing we want to have for guilds and that. We continue to do that. But anything else kind of, I guess, in terms of the process for how things will flow. Cool.
I like the mention of Sky of being careful on how much funds we are going to transfer, and while we are confident, while all of us are using the guilds and receiving payments on that, we can transfer the entirety of the funds. So yeah, I think that we should be careful on how the flow of funds are going to go to the guild, right? Not to create a huge honeypot.
Yeah. And Sky, maybe we'll talk about the multi-sig element of that for voice and operations. Cool. Any other items to discuss, I guess, before 2022? A couple items you can see there. We're checking out some additional posts on guilds discussion. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining on this last governance discussion of 2022. We will be back in 2023 at the same time. Now let me make sure I don't stop sharing.